So how bad are Iowa winters really? Let's discuss. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel on this nice cold winter January day. And I make videos like this all the time, so if this is something that you like, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below or hit that notification bell so you get notified every single time we upload a new video. And I am a real estate broker here in the Quad Cities, so if you're thinking about purchasing a home, you want to know more about that, hit me down below. There's my number. Send me a text, send me an email. I am the one that answers all of those, so feel free to reach out and we'll talk to you then. All right, so without further delay, let's talk about it. Is Iowa winters really that bad? Well, to give you a reference, I am here in Bettendorf, which is in eastern Iowa. Specifically, I'm over here on Utica Ridge Road, although I have lived all over the state, and I can tell you as far as winters go, they're pretty similar all over the state. There's a little difference between North Iowa and South Iowa, but pretty minuscule when you're trying to make that decision. There are really three main factors which you want to consider if you're thinking about moving to Iowa and you're a little bit worried about, that winter that everybody talks about. And those three things are really the snow. As you can see, it does snow here. The cold, which I'm feeling. I know you can't feel it here, but I feel it right now. And three, which a lot of people won't discuss, is the amount of darkness that we'll see during the Iowa winters. If you want to know more about that, you're going to have to stick around to the end because I will discuss that at the end. But I'm going to start out with the snow. So, like I said, this video is perfectly timed as we just got a fresh snowfall last night into this early morning. And the big thing you want to think about when it comes to snow is, can you still get around? Now, this is a question I get from a lot of you, which honestly, this video was inspired by one of you. The answer is yes, and it's because of the infrastructures that Iowa has around snow removal. When it snows, the snowplows get out early, they get the snow off the road, and then they come back, and sometimes at the same time, put down salt. And if you're from the south or you've never experienced snow, what salt does, it does melt the snow and it gets it off, gets the ice off the roads. It's easier to plow, so it's very beneficial. And another side note that Iowa plow drivers will do is they actually put beet juice down. Yeah, it's a little bit weird, but it is something that Iowa plows do. Same thing as what the salt does. It's just a more organic way, if you want to call it that, to get the snow off the road. As you can see behind me, that worked perfectly with this last snowfall. It's about noon or so right now, and the snow that snowed last night is, as you can see, completely gone. Those cars are getting around just fine. There's really no ice on the road, so it works really well. But another question that people will get sometimes is, when it snows, is it going to stick around for a long time? Well, that kind of depends on the winter. When it snows in Iowa, the temperatures are going to be a little bit warmer just because that's what will allow the snow to actually come out and actually fall. Not all the time, but most of the time that's what's going to happen. But as far as it sticking around, sometimes it will stick around, sometimes it won't. It is January right now. Just like 2 days ago, it was almost 60 degrees out, and now we have snow on the ground. So if we get another 60-degree day, that snow is going to all melt away. But if it stays as cold as it is right now, which I think it's like 28 degrees out, it will stick around for a while. And sometimes we'll get a snow early on in the winter, and it will stick around until the spring. So it does stick around when those temperatures are cold, but it's not impossible that we'll get temperatures that will melt it away. Like I said, it just kind of depends on that winter that we're having. So what kind of car are you going to need if you're moving to Iowa Obviously you can see the roads, they are clear, and I've discussed that. But when the roads aren't clear, should you be concerned about what kind of car you have? Typically, no. So unless you're living out in the country, you're probably not gonna absolutely need a four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive car. They are super beneficial to have, so I recommend them if you can afford it. But I just have a two-wheel car and I get around just fine. So no, you don't need that four-wheel drive. No, you don't need that all-wheel drive. Is it useful? Absolutely. Is it necessary? No. The other thing about winter storms in Iowa, again, there's a caveat to everything, but typically we see the snow happening during the nighttime. The plows get out super early in the morning, they plow it off. Unless you're going to work super early, usually the roads are going to be cleared off. Now there's exceptions to everything. That's usually what we'll see, but nighttime snow, if you get up in the morning, usually you're going to be pretty good. The roads are going to be starting looking like this, especially by mid-afternoon. So the number two thing that you got to worry about Iowa winters is the cold, which I can feel right now. It's not the absolute worst considering that it is January, but it is something that you have to think about because we do see this. Now in Iowa, you're going to see temperatures average about 14 degrees during the winter time. Obviously it's going to vary. You got northern Iowa, might be a little bit colder. Southern Iowa might be a little bit warmer, but it's going to be generally around that area. Once in a while we get extreme cases of cold. I remember a couple of years ago we had the polar vortex, and I feel like most of the country actually felt this. But here in Iowa, we actually saw temperatures drop down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which is extremely cold. I remember at the time I had to worry about my car because I wasn't sure if it would start, even in the garage. When batteries get super cold, they don't like to turn over the engine, so it's something to consider. That's an extreme case, although just this Christmas, which I'm filming this in January, we had kind of another polar vortex, although they didn't call it that. It got down to like negative 25 Fahrenheit, not to the extreme that it was at that negative 40, but it was extremely cold out, and at those temperatures it can be dangerous. So if you are moving to Iowa and we get those temperatures, make sure to bundle up or stay inside if you can. When that polar vortex came through, I was actually working at a manufacturing facility at the time, and I remember we had a shutdown, so we had to shut all the machines down. This was planned beforehand, but because of that polar vortex that came through, we had to make sure that some of those liquids that were in the machine were either warmed, heated, or were moving the whole time. It's definitely a big concern, and I remember so much planning going around that when we had that outage happen. It's just something that really sticks in my mind as far as those cold temperatures go. And along those same lines, if we have those extreme cold temperatures, you have to make sure that you're watching out for your home. There's things that can happen when those cold temperatures come through. You could have burst pipes. You gotta make sure your furnace is running because you don't want to be stuck without a furnace in those kind of temperatures. So it's definitely something to think about when those temperatures come through. Now, like I said, that polar vortex is not typical. You're usually gonna see temperatures, 14 degrees Fahrenheit. So even at those temperatures, you got to make sure your house is good, but it's not to the extreme of those polar vortex temperatures. So I'm glad you stuck around to the end here. I'm going to discuss this number 3 topic, which is the darkness that can happen with Iowa winters. Most of the time, as you can see probably the sky behind me, it's going to be cloudy, it's going to be kind of dreary, kind of dark a lot of times. But not only that, in the winter time, our daytime hours are pretty short. It's going to get dark typically around 5:30 at night, and it's going to stay dark until say 7:30 in the morning or so. So it does stay dark quite a lot, and if you're somebody that goes into work early and leaves late, a lot of times you're not going to see daylight. Now, the reason I bring that up is because when I did work my engineering job, that happened to me fairly often. I'd go in early, I'd come out late, and I wouldn't see daylight. And that is definitely something that messes with your head and, lot of people in Iowa, they'll have, the cabin fever or whatever you want to call it, the seasonal depression, and it is a thing. So you got to make sure that you're watching your mental health when those dark days come. But one way that you can do that is there's a ton of activities that can happen during the winter. One of my favorite things to do is I actually go to the gym during the winter. There's not a lot to do outside, so why not go to the gym, work on yourself, and get in better physical shape. So that's one option. But if you do want to get outside, there's things that you can do. I know right here in Bettendorf there's an option to actually go cross-country skiing at one of the golf courses, so it's an option to get out. Or there's a lot of little hills around the area that you can go down, tubing, a lot of things for family style. You can go on those hills, sled down the hill, have a great time, and get out and actually enjoy the hours that we do have of sunlight. Now, if that isn't your thing, maybe you want to go to one of the local breweries. Iowa has a ton of breweries, and it is something that you can do during the winter. Hang out with your friends, get outside, or get out into the public. It's definitely a fun thing to do. So just make sure that you're taking care of yourself when those dark times come. Summer's coming along, so something to think about. So how long is our winter typically? Well, here in Iowa, you can expect the winter kind of to get going, say mid-November, late November, and it will go until about early March. Now, obviously those time periods can change year to year, but that's typically what you're gonna see. If we have cold temperatures in October or snow in October, it's very unusual. And if we have stuff like that going on late March, again, it's kind of unusual. As far as the temperatures go, you're simply going to see the coldest temperatures in January and February, along with the most snow going on in January and February. So you want to prepare for that. But that is how long our winters typically last. So if you're considering the move, just know that's when it's going to be the coldest and the most snowy if that happens. Again, I'm glad you got to watch this video. If you're thinking about making a move here in the Quad Cities, make sure to reach out to me. I love to help you out. But if there's more you want to know about the Quad Cities or Davenport, check out these videos here because it's going to tell you just a little bit more.